Well, it's 6 o'clock on Saturday, the 19th of October, 2019. Good evening, and thank you for tuning in to the English edition of Ora News. My name is Oliver, bringing you the only daily update of the local Albanian news translated into English. Up first tonight, North Macedonia is set to initiate the process for the new elections after failing to negotiate with the European Union. Macedonian Prime Minister Zoran Zaev called Friday's decision by the EU a historic mistake and takes personal responsibility for the new elections. Brussels did not do us justice, he said. We did everything we were asked to do while they didn't keep their word. This is a historical mistake for Europe. But politicians have to be accountable to the citizens, and so I am taking responsibility for calling snap parliamentary elections, Zaev stated at a press conference. Commenting on France's skeptical position, the head of the executive added that European values and the desire for reforms push Macedonians towards a European Union future. We have 27 out of 28 European leaders in our favor. We understand the debate and the dilemmas that France has, but that should not discourage us, said Zaev. Regarding the election date, the head of government hinted that day could be set on Sunday during his consultations with other parties and that the president, Steve Pendarski. Meanwhile, VMRO opponents over the weekend demanded the resignation of the prime minister after serving nearly 3 years in office, while Albanian political parties, on the other hand, have proposed a technical cabinet until new elections can be held. And up next tonight, the Albanian government withdraws all responsibility from the European Union's negative decision on membership negotiations for the third time in a row. For the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama, as well as the acting Minister for European and Foreign Affairs, Gen Sakai, the opening of negotiations has nothing to do with the work undertaken by the government, but rather has to do with France's new vision for enlargement. During a press conference held earlier today, Sakai promised that the government would not be discouraged from the result and will continue to work on the country's integration into the EU. The European Union failed to secure a consensus. It does not come from international differences, but from this different vision for the future. The decision to postpone the negotiations does not come as a result of Albania's failure to accomplish its duties, but emerges as a direct consequence of Europe's internal reviewing of itself, said Sakai. Like Albania, the failure to open EU negotiations in North Macedonia has made similar headlines, but apart from that, the leaders of the two Western Balkan countries do not have the same strategy in terms of responsibility towards their citizens. The cases of Albania and North Macedonia were treated identically since both countries met all the requirements. The postponement didn't come as a result of their performance, but from other factors within the EU. North Macedonia even changed its name, but the decision for its postponement has nothing to do with North Macedonia. The same thing happened with Albania, said Sakai. As for the case of the 11-year-old Albanian boy who's being held in Syrian camps, Acting Minister Gen Sakai says that this is a matter that goes beyond just diplomacy. Well, for some of the European Union leaders, Friday's denial of membership negotiations for Albania and Northern Macedonia was a historical mistake. But the decision has been welcomed by far-right forces in some of the member states, including France and Germany. The Alternative for Germany party says that on Friday, politicians and the citizens of the two countries are responsible for the refusal to vote. Even the personal presence of the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama in Berlin cannot justify the reasonable doubts we have. As long as the country, among other things, does not have a functioning constitutional court, there are no negotiations going to happen. Joining the EU is not a Christmas present, the AfD stated through Bundestag MP Siersberg Droes. In France, the party of Marine Le Pen supported President Emmanuel Macron's veto to open up negotiations. Like their German counterparts, MEP Hélène Laporte welcomed in Paris the Netherlands, Denmark, and Spain, while fantasizing over the position of Berlin and Brussels in the negotiations. Due to the economic situation, both countries do not have the capacity to contribute to the EU budget in a surplus manner. Therefore, we as a party are calling for all EU accession processes to be stopped, which, don't forget, costs billions of euros each year, the French representative to the European Parliament said. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, also reiterated his reservations about negotiations with Albania, saying the country must address the concerns held by many member countries until further decision-making. And moving on now closer to home, the two winning parties in Kosovo have reached an agreement on the principle of co-governance, which are expected to be further explained next week. Following the first coordination meeting, the representative of the Vetëvendosje movement, Glauc Confuca, announced that the discussions with their Democratic League colleagues were focused on reforms and preparing for the new executive. The October 6 preliminary results show that the Vetëvendosje party was the party with the most votes with 25.5%, followed by the Democratic League of Kosovo with 24.8%, the PDK with 21.2%, the AAK-PSD with 11.5% of the votes, and the Initiative AKR party very close to the 5% threshold. The Serbian list, which received more than 6.6% of the votes, achieved high results this time around. As for the appealing of polling stations, the counting process will be completed next week, according to coordinator Burim Ahmetaj. Meanwhile, as for votes from the diaspora, they are still being counted. The Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has sent a letter to the European Union regarding the allegations by Kosovo that some of the boxes of envelopes arriving from Serbia were sprayed with poisonous substances and caused some allergic reactions to the CEC workers. Spokeswoman Maja Conciani responded on Friday that the European Union is awaiting the results by forensic experts. Well, Alvin Berisha is one of the stranded children in a Syrian refugee camp. The show Le Lene managed to contact the young boy who was traveling with his mother to war when he became injured. The calls by the boy's father to find his son were soon joined by Italian journalists, but the process of getting him back to Albania proves to be difficult. The Mufti of Shkodra, Imam Mohammed Sutari, called on Albanian diplomats to act urgently so that the child could be returned home safe and sound. Just a few days ago, the Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama expressed concerns over the case, but stressed that the process of bringing the 11-year-old boy back to his family has indeed begun. 5 years ago, his mother, Valbona Berisha, was radicalized by ISIS and aspired to join the group in Syria. His mother has reportedly lost her life in the war, but the 11-year-old boy was also injured while being held in an orphanage camp. The footprints followed by his father that took him to Syria were aired on the TV show Le Lene, which uncovered the haunting footage as the baby boy cries and demands to be returned back home. Well, brain drain from the country has stifled activity in Albanian businesses. Just a few days ago, the World Bank announced that 40% of immigrants originating from Albania are highly educated. Alban Zusi has called for a national plan to find a solution to this problem. According to Zusi, it's necessary for the government to abolish taxes on middle and lower incomes in order to improve the welfare of Albanian families. The Albanian exodus of educated citizens has been alarming in recent years, bringing difficulties to supply of labor in all sectors of the economy. Only a few days before the deadline for opening a bank account, the tax administration indicates that there has been an influx of businesses sending in their data. Rezana Chelmeta, Director of Taxpayer Services, states that about 2,200 entities have submitted their information in one day. On the first day that this opportunity was offered to electronically declare banking data, we had an influx of taxpayers, and specifically 2,200 taxpayers who submitted their data through electronic filing, said Chelmeta. Only natural persons who are not registered in VAT are exempted from this process. It's worth pointing out that the category of natural persons who are not included in the VAT scheme have no obligation to have or to declare their bank account, said Chelmeta. In total, there are about 55,000 businesses in the country that are obliged to open and declare their bank account details to the tax administration. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you so much for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Ora News, thank you and have a very good weekend.